Today, it's time to get schooled. And speaking of today, did you know that on this day, December 7th, 1941, Japanese bombers launched a surprise aerial attack on the United States naval base at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii? Within days of the assault, America declared war and entered into World War II. Like Yorktown and Gettysburg, this day has forged our identity. It lives in infamy. Few events in our history have been studied and documented like this one. We know that on that morning, 350 Japanese warplanes killed 2,403 Americans. Another 1,104 Americans were wounded. We know that 21 ships were sunk or severely damaged. Yet did you know that hours before the surprise attack, an American destroyer fired and sank a Japanese submarine just outside the defensive sea area surrounding Pearl Harbor? And despite all of the studies, numerous contradictions exist between first-hand accounts. December 7th, 1941, truly a date which will live in infamy. What seems to be the powerful lesson of this little tale is that infamy, as a common theme in literature, seems more relevant than ever in our everyday lives. There is no doubt that December 7th, 1941 was an infamous day. But what about shameful storylines today? Political scandals, greedy robber barons, outrageous conspirators, do they get called out anymore for what they are? Shameless? Perhaps we have seen the death of shame. Many critics blame social media. Maybe they should ask Diogenes. He lived quite shamefully over 2,000 years ago. Perhaps the lessons of Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter, a classic study on shame, can still resonate. One critic of that novel wrote, "The fear of public shame and shame itself can lead to repression, alienation, and a crave for revenge." Before we get too haughty, the wild rosebush, as noted by Hawthorne, has both beautiful petals and thorns. Shame on us for not noticing the nuance. The same might be said for how we study history, too. Psst, it's Prologue with MR.REVIEW. It's a podcast that is actively digging tons of earth to find an ounce of gold, striving for a more perfect union.